Hey guys, John Veach here, and in today's video I'm going to take you through my best fitness tip. If there's one thing I wish I knew in my 20s or when I started training, this would be it. I'll go through exactly where you're at now, why you're at where you are at now, whether it's with your fitness, your physique, any health aspect. I'll show you the steps to take to get to your desired goal, and then I'll also show you the most important part is how to sustain it. So how to keep it and even progress, and how you can keep building and building and progress on what you thought was your peak before, and how you can improve on that. I've got a little whiteboard here which is going to help me explain some of the points, and I'll address that in a second. But the main point to start with is we always focus on the peak of what we can achieve, when in reality we should focus on the minimum standard we're willing to accept. You do this with most things in your life. If it could be how clean or messy your house is, how much money you have in your bank account is a good one, and especially with your fitness. So you can see on the chart here, I'll just see if we can, let's move this down. So on the chart here we have a curve. Okay, so at the top and down. So if we're going to relate, we'll start with your bank account. At the top, you've probably got an amount in your bank account that you always get to, and then you end up spending money, and it will take you back down to the bottom, and that's the minimum amount in your bank account that you have before you start looking to sell things or trying to work harder to make more money again. So when we relate this to your fitness, you have a peak that you can achieve and a minimum standard that you're willing to accept. So for me, I'll put on the screen now, this is the peak. This is from 2020, and this is pretty much the peak of what I used to be able to get to. And then the bottom, the minimum standard that I would be willing to accept at that time was this. I'll put this picture on the screen now. Now, I've broken that cycle. So what was my peak before is now my minimum standard. And this is a picture from me yesterday morning, and it's not far off, or it's pretty much on par with what my peak used to be in 2020. So I'll explain how I broke that cycle, and how you can do the same. So as I said before, anything you go through in life, you're going to go through these cycles, and you always end up being, with a blue line, is pretty much an average of your peak, what you can achieve, and the lowest standard that you're willing to accept. So C is confidence, and then D is doubt. So whenever you get to the top, you're full of confidence, and then what tends to happen, which I'll go through in a second, is you always find yourself coming back down to the minimum standard that you're willing to accept, and that's doubt at the bottom. So here, this is all dependent on your emotions, so on how much pain you feel. So when I'm approaching at the top of the curve, I'm feeling confident. Okay, I feel a sense of pride, but then as I come up to the top, the pride will start to be overtaken by comfort. I start to feel comfortable. I reach my peak physique, and then I go and eat donuts, or I go out and I go out drinking, or I'll slip into bad habits where I don't get up to go to the gym, or I don't do my steps for the day. All these little actions will then bring me closer and closer down to the minimum standard that I'm willing to accept. And when I get down to here, I feel that anger. I feel, I've let myself slip again. And I'll just repeat that cycle over and over again. A typical example for me, I used to try and get in shape for holidays every single year. After the holiday, go on holiday, feel confident, look great, and then I just always slip back down to the same position, or an average of the two, because I hadn't addressed the points to break the cycle, which I'll come to. So when we look at this, it is all about, at the top you feel like when you're in your worst, you get that drive, that determination, almost that hero character to be like, I'm going to make a change. Okay, so you implement behaviors to get back up to the top. So you've got a lot of drive here, because the anger will turn into drive, which then turns to pride at the top, and then you get comfortable, and it happens all over again. So the things that you can do to get from bad shape, or your worst or lowest minimum standard, up to the point your highest peak, is the following. So there's 5 things that you can do. The first one is sleep. So we're aiming to sleep for 7 to 9 hours a night, unbroken if possible. And that's because each sleep cycle lasts 90 minutes. And you want to go through around 4 to 5 sleep cycles per night. So there's things that you can do like sleep in a cold, dark room. But I have like a 10-3-2-1-0 tool that I like to use. So 10 hours before you go to bed, no more caffeine. 3 hours before you go to bed, no more big meals. 2 hours before you go to bed, no more stressful tasks. An hour before you go to bed, no more blue light, or don't be on your phone, because on your phone will raise cortisol levels, same as stressful tasks, and that can't allow melatonin to signal to allow you to feel sleepy. So 2 hours before, no more stressful tasks. An hour before, put your phone down, again, because they raise cortisol levels. And 0 is the amount of times you press snooze in the morning. So as soon as your alarm goes off in the morning, get up and get on with your day. And what that does is it will just regulate, you go to bed at the same time, you get up at the same time, and it will regulate your sleep. You'll have much deeper sleep, and obviously sleep is where all repair happens. This is just a very high level look at the behaviors that you can do, and I'll go into each aspect of this in a little bit more detail in future videos. So after you sleep, you've got your steps, or NEAT, which is non-exercise activity thermogenesis. So this is about how much movement you do in the day. So we want to aim for around a minimum of 7,000 steps, and ideally by not adding walks in. So this is things you can do like park a little bit further away from work, or when you go shopping at the mall. So you're adding those extra steps in. If you're having to include a walk to get your steps in, that's extra training. So you want to try and do it by taking the stairs and finding little things to add extra movement into your day. The next thing is water. Drinking around 3 to 4 litres per day. So the equation for this is 30 times your body weight. So for me, I'm 80 kilos. Times by 30 millilitres is going to be 2.4 litres of water per day. So that would be the minimum that I'd take on. And if I add extra training in, again, around my training session, I would consume at least 500 ml per hour. And again, depending on my sweat rate, which I'll look at more in depth in a future video. If you'd like to see that, comment below. But hydration is really key. So that would be the minimum standard that I would do, even on non-training days, would be 2.4 litres of water for me. And that equation you can use to work out for yourself as well. The next thing is nutrition. So I'd always eat to my requirements. So just a very high level look. If you don't know what your requirements are, again, I'll go through this in a future video. But if you just ate whole, unprocessed foods, you would be in great shape. Okay, so a very high level, if you just started tomorrow just eating unprocessed foods, whole foods, you won't go wrong. And I'll go through videos in the future about how to work out your requirements, what that looks like as a food diary, and how to work out your macronutrients too. Okay, so sleep, steps, water, nutrition. The last one is going to be strength training. We want to aim for around 3 to 4 strength training sessions per week. If you think about it like this, cardio or cardiovascular training will give you longevity. Strength training will give you quality of life. So cardio will give you length of life, conditioning, or strength will give you quality of life. So you want to be able to walk. Your strength improves your muscles. Muscles hold your skeleton up. You want to be able to move around long into your old age. Okay, so those are the behaviors that you can use to get you up a little bit higher on this chart. So this will bring you to the peak of what you can achieve. Now, to sustain it, you need to address your character. If you want to achieve a certain reality, you have to achieve a certain character. An example of this I can give you is The Biggest Loser. So you've all seen the TV show, you may have seen the TV show in America where the obese people take part in a fitness challenge to see who can lose the most weight. So they implement those behaviors, pretty much the behaviors that I've just went through, and then they get into great shape. They get to their peak. Now, 9 times out of 10, they go back to visit them a year later, and they've put all the weight back on and more. And there's 2 reasons for this. One, they haven't built the right character, or they haven't built the certain characters to sustain the results that they've got. And the second part is they haven't taken the floor with them. So for you to achieve and sustain this position, think about it like a building. We're on this drive, we want this to continue for as long as possible, to come right up to here. But if we haven't brought our minimum standard with us, that's going to come crashing back down. If I build a tower and I go up 60 floors high, but my floor is still at 0, I'm going to come crashing all the way back down to 0. And sometimes I'll go below that minimum standard because I haven't addressed the character or the emotional traits to sustain it. So whenever we build up our minimums, up to our peak, we need to bring our minimum standard with us. And the way that we do that is by seeing our lowest standard as painful. So here we have the anger, which turns into drive, which turns into pride, which turns into comfort. At this point here, you want to associate that great shape that you've got into with to be painful, so that you can maintain it for as long as possible. And what that ends up looking like is, instead of up and down in this pattern, it ends up being a little bit more of an increase each time. And the average that we had before will still be the same, will still be the average of those peaks and troughs, but you're keeping the progression. So if you can see from before, my lowest standard before, if you can see that, my lowest standard, my peak here before was here from 2020, and now my walk around is pretty much the lowest standard that I'm willing to accept further down. So you can see how I implement them behaviors, and then I address the character. I address the character when I'm at the top here to make that now standard feel painful. So those actions that I do every single day, the sleep, steps, water, nutrition, strength training 3 times a week, that's my minimum standard, and that'll achieve that physique that I showed you at the start. Now, over time, if I continue to implement that peak then becomes my now I'm here, that's my lowest minimum standard. And you can see, once I get to that point, that lowest minimum standard, you can then address that with things like nutrition. So how I talked about a very high level, just eating whole unprocessed foods will get you a certain level. Then you start increasing your understanding and looking at what exactly your requirements are for the day. What that looks like is calories, what that looks like is macros, and how you implement it. That could then turn into meal timings around training. Your mindset will change. Your minimum steps might look to increase, or your daily movement might look to increase, which will then bring this standard up again and again. And you can keep progressing and progressing through that forever. And it's not just with your health and fitness. This will go through in your personal life, in your business. That's a very quick overview and a very quick look at how you can implement these things, and one of my best fitness tips. If you did like the video, please leave a comment. I'll respond to all the comments, and let me know if there's any topics that you'd like to see. This was my first video, so I'm sure I'll get better and better, and I'm 100% sure that I'll do this video again and I'll explain it in a lot more detail, and go through things like why you self-sabotage, how you get up to the top, and then how you want to destroy yourself back down again, and I'll do that in a future video. But thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and see you in the next one.